On this episode, we talk about the recent buzz on social media causing confusion of how glyphosate is specified on application labels for soybeans, specifically referencing the technical differences between brand names and common names. John Feldt, meteorologist, joins us to give an update on the upcoming spring weather and soil moisture outlook. Stick around. Joe gives his opinion on today's society and what will happen if there's no competition in the marketplace.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman from Merschman Seeds, and this is episode number 19 of Cup of Joe. Well, we have a lot of things to talk about. We actually are going to focus on two things today. One is the current questions about application of glyphosate over the top of LibertyLink GT27s and the brands that work, as well as Enlist E3. And then we're going to bring on a special guest via the phone, John Feldt from Blue Water Outlook at St. Charles, Missouri, to finish up the session. So let's start off with Tommy. I said it all started, yesterday afternoon? The social media just kind of started blowing up on things. What's going on here? What are we talking about when we say glyphosate? And which ones work, which ones don't? What's going on?
Well, I'll let Ben handle the technicality terms of whichever products work and don't work. But what we had yesterday, Joe, was Ohio State. There was an article that was released talking about what glyphosates that can be used over the top for LibertyLink GT27 soybeans. And so there has created a lot of confusion. There's been a lot of buzz. There's a couple articles that were put out yesterday, too, by a couple ag outlook companies on the web. So created a lot of confusion to understanding which glyphosates to spray over the top. Now, it kind of seems a little technical on some of these terms, and it's kind of over my head anyway, at least on some of these products. So, and then, like I said, I'll let Ben get to the technical terms of it. But what really seems to me is just a lot of confusion brought into from certain areas of the marketplace where for something to create a little bit of a sales momentum, so to speak,
yeah.
Joe. So, but what we really want to try to get to the bottom of this is just to answer and try to get as many of your guys' questions taken care of. So, and I'm going to let Ben talk about some of the technical terms and what you can and can't do, and some of the products that do and don't work. And you know, for a lot of these areas where Roundup resistance is a problem, you know, a lot of people aren't going to probably be using glyphosate, in those products. So,
yeah, and I have a couple comments about that too. Is, you know, when a lot of these herbicide labels were written, there was only one gene out there, and that was the Monsanto's Roundup gene. So a lot of the language references that particular gene. And since then, now there's more than one gene of glyphosate tolerance, and obviously one from MS Technologies, right, another one from Syngenta. Mm-hmm. So now when you technically look at the actual the way the label was written, which was originally written, says, well, it's for basically for at that time Monsanto's Roundup. Now it's Bayer Monsanto, and so therefore these labels don't allow you to put it on LibertyLink GT27 because it's not specifically written in there. And I really think what's happened here is, you know, times have changed, and it's no different than a lot of branding that goes out there. Many times a company will come out with a product, and one good example is Kleenex, for example. If you say Kleenex, do you think of a particular brand? Well, at one time that was a trademark of a particular brand. So therefore, those brands become genericized. And other examples are aspirin. You know, that was a trademark for Bayer. It is no longer a trademark for Bayer from the standpoint of that everybody refers to it in the United States as a common name. And so dry ice would be another one. And I just kind of looked through there. Thermos, videotape. These were all trademarks and brand names. That Zipper, for example, was originally from B.F. Goodrich. But what I'm trying to say is I really think that's what's going on here, is that Roundup now has become more genericized as a brand. Right now it's not, but it could be declared by the trademark and patent offices as a genericized brand to describe glyphosate. But these are technical differences. Mm-hmm. I think obviously our competitors would love for us to say that you can't apply certain products, and we'll be working through that, and hopefully we'll get this all resolved by the time spray time comes. But Ben's been researching this a little bit too, And we don't have an official response yet. We will have shortly after we do a little bit more research into it. But some of the information, Ben, that you've picked up in the last 24 hours, what are you seeing?
Well, there's basically three different styles. There's three different ways that you can label what product can be sprayed on. We have a Roundup Ready label without the trademark insignia that goes over the edge. Mm-hmm. We have the Roundup Ready with the trademark insignia, and then we have glyphosate tolerant crops. So somebody from Ag Web, I'm not sure where this, or New Ag Talk, I'm not sure where this came up with, but they came up with a pretty, it's not completely comprehensive, but it has quite a few of the most popular glyphosates that are out used in the market today. Mm-hmm. So with those three different kinds, this is just all speculation on my part and obviously this person's part as well. We still have plenty of options. I mean, does it take away Roundup Power Max and Roundup Weather Max? Yes. Those are two pretty popular glyphosate brands that are used today, but it doesn't take it away everything by any means. So we still have products from, if we can use the Roundup without an insignia, we still have products from all the All Ball products, which are the Glystars, all of the Buccaneers, which are from Tenzox, anything from Corteva, which is Durango. Durango's a really, really popular Roundup that I see used around here quite a bit. Anything from Bayer is not. That's going to have the Roundup Ready insignia. Drexel has some Roundup Readies that we'll be able to use. Anything from New Farm won't be able to be used. Anything from Hellam won't be able to use. But there's a Nutrien one here called Mag Dog, and Winfield has a Tomahawk that are both going to be able to be used if we follow this person's opinion on what will be able to be used based on Roundup insignia and Roundup not.
And we'll dive into this a lot deeper here in the next week or two. And obviously, we anticipate there could be a correction being made by the EPA. And so at this point, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is what we're saying. Don't get excited, okay?
Yep.
And I was just telling Ben and Tommy today how that term, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, how that originated. It originated back in the Middle Ages, when the head of the household got to take his bath first, and then the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, until they got to the youngest in the family, which by that time the water's probably pretty gray, And that's where we're at right now. We're looking at some grayness, and we'll get this thing figured out. But the bottom line is you'll have some options, and we'll work through this. We'll get an official response. And right now, it makes for good social media.
It does.
And but if farmers are concerned, please call us. We'll be glad to talk to you, and then we'll give you information. As soon as we get an official position, we'll send it out. But right now, what Ben's talking about, I believe, is fairly accurate from what we know today.
Yeah, and there's some more. I mean, there's some of these products that have the Roundup Ready insignia are labeled for Roundup Ready 1 and Roundup Ready 2 soybeans, but it doesn't talk anything about Extend. So it could come backwards on them from their own standpoint. It's just a lot of confusion. We'll get it all straightened out, and then we'll come forward with our official response.
How is cotton? Isn't cotton labeled for all glyphosate uses on those aspects, and it's not a particular brand name?
I would have to go back and look at
sure.
That's been a question that's brought about, so I was just curious on that.
Yeah, there's even been some social media talk about that technically Extend soybeans can't be sprayed with certain glyphosates then too if we're going to go by the letter of the label.
Yep.
So I just think a lot of it has to do with the way they were written back in the day. Mm-hmm. And they started out as Kleenex and it became a generic term, and I think interpretation of these particular brand names are now more generic, and I think the EPA has to recognize that glyphosate may not have been written that way because there was one predominant glyphosate at that time. So we'll work through these problems, but we just want to assure folks that are watching and listening not to get too excited. And as we promised last week, we're going to have a special guest call in. His name is John Feldt from Blue Water Outlook at St. Charles, Missouri. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Joe.
I know a lot of folks know who you are because they subscribe to your services, and but I would like you to just talk about the relationship that Mershman Seeds has with John Feldt and Blue Water Outlook.
Well, I've been involved in weather for quite some time, about 40 years, maybe even a little bit more. Much of it's been with the National Weather Service, and part of that time has been in the Midwest. I was in charge of the Des Moines, Iowa office for a period of time, and agriculture and weather has always been one of my interests. So when I started Blue Water Outlook a while back, got in contact with Joe, and we decided to really bring it to the next level and really bring some of the science of meteorology, hydrology, and climatology, and try to put it in a way that growers could use to really help their situational awareness and professional development. So in that regard, we put out a lot of information, and hopefully it's the type of information that can be used in making some real sound decisions based on, like I said, some of the science that's just really beginning to advance on how we use, not just over the next couple of days, but maybe even the next number of months or even the next number of years in our outlooks.
John, what are some of the opportunities or services that you offer to listeners and watchers of our Cup of Joe series here?
Well, by far, I think the most beneficial one is a service that Mershman Seeds sponsors. It's the Ag Weather Advisor, and that's a free service you can sign up for at mershmanseedsweather.com. And what I put out is I put out information a number of times per week. That includes a video briefing, usually over the weekend, that helps get set for the beginning of the week. And then throughout the week, I put out different posts on all sorts of weather information. I try to keep it the type of information you wouldn't normally see elsewhere. It's very professional. It's not just what the forecast is going to be, and certainly that's important, but it's a lot of the science behind the forecast. So I think it also serves a role in professional development in helping my readers really understand what's shaping the weather and what's going to shape it in the future, because it is very complicated, to understand what's causing the weather. This year is a good example of that. But I think just about every year, as we all know, the weather's very complicated. We all depend on it, and there's a whole lot of things shaping it. Some things we know and some things we really don't know.
Well, John, tell us what's going on right now and what you think spring and possibly summer might turn out to be.
Well, it's been a very complex winter, depending where you are in the Corn Belt. Certainly in the West and the Northwest, Corn Belt has been a very harsh or extreme winter. Matter of fact, there's tons of snow sitting up in Minnesota, parts of North Dakota, and Wisconsin, and it's been so cold it's sitting up there for a long time. So I'm very concerned with the spring snowmelt potential coming down the upper Mississippi. So in that part of the Corn Belt, it's been very, very cold and harsh. Now, on the other hand, the eastern Corn Belt has been relatively mild temperatures. Now, right along that gradient, when you get those gradients of cold and warm, it's been active. And Iowa's been sort of in the middle, the central Corn Belt, where it's been a severe winter, lots of snow in spots, some more variability, but there's been more of a battleground right in the middle Corn Belt. So it started out quite severe. So the big question is, what's going to continue? And, if I can step back just a bit, sort of what I talk about in my posts is, I have to figure out what's causing this persistent cold. And, really some of the science says we have to look way back into the Arctic regions, because there's a lot less Arctic sea ice and a lot more open water than there normally would be. And some of the latest research shows that allows evaporation into the atmosphere. It puts more snow down into the big ice fields of Siberia, and that cold is able to come down into the upper Midwest. And I really do think that pattern is likely to continue for a while. Now, I am seeing more variability. Over the next 2 weeks, I see 2 storm systems pushing through. That's going to bring rain and snow over the middle part of the nation. It's going to cause a mess. It's going to cause some flooding. It's going to cause more snow. It's going to cause saturated fields. Then I think we're going to go back into the deep freeze. We're going to have one more push of very cold air the 3rd week of March. And then after that, as we get into April, it looks to me like we're going to get more into the typical springtime variability and gradually trend back towards what we would normally see in spring. And then by the time we get into late spring, I think that's when we're going to finally get back into perhaps the warm-up and more typical late spring and summer weather.
So there is a little bit of hope coming for us.
I think so. I think the challenge, especially over the northern Corn Belt and the central, are going to be unusually cold soils and unusually wet soils, and that's going to pose a problem for early spring. I think that's going to be the northern part of the Corn Belt, the central Corn Belt. The east, not so much. The east, it doesn't look like as much rain. It looks like milder temperatures. Now let's look out a little bit further, even into summer. Well, I think in summer we're going to trend back to some of our normal patterns we've seen. I think what we're going to be looking at is going to be more above normal temperatures, but not tremendously so, more modestly above normal temperatures. I do think we will be seeing some typical, like we see every year, dry spots here and there. Now, a couple things that I think are important to mention here. First of all, El Nino, you've probably heard about that. That's the equatorial Pacific temperatures, sea surface temperatures are above normal. And some of the latest models are showing that that could continue right through the summer. Right now it's fairly weak, but that could shape our weather a bit as we get towards summer. Another thing that's very important here, and it could be positive or negative, and most likely both, is soil moisture. Right now, soil moisture across the entire Corn Belt is at least adequate, if not above normal. So I think what that's going to do is early in the season, that's going to be problematic. That's going to give us some problems with wet soils and unfortunately cold wet soils over, like I said, the northern part of the Corn Belt. Over the east, I think it's going to be adequate. Now let's go fast forward a bit into summer, the core of the growing season. At that time, I think the soil moisture is going to be positive for us, and it's going to sustain decent yields as we get into the core of the growing season. So what might be a problem early in the season could very well be a benefit as we get into the height of the growing season.
Well, that's really good, insightful information, John. Is there anything else that you would like to add for our listeners?
Well, no, I'd encourage everyone to sign up to the Mershman Seeds Ag Weather Advisor. And it's something that everything I've talked about here is things I talk about as we go through the spring and summer. There's so much right now going on to discuss. That's the way I do talk about that. And I also always welcome emails from individual growers who have any specific comments or questions they might have about their operations.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I've had customers that have emailed you and you've been very responsive to their weather questions, and you know, it's almost like having your own personal weather person you know, at your disposal. So John, you do a great job, and I personally really enjoy the weekly update where you tell why the weather is the way it is and what it's going to do for the next 2 weeks. I find that, you know, we run our company by it based on what you report and what you predict, because it tells us where we need to ship our seed first, where it's going to be dry, and where it might be wet. We wait till the following week. So we appreciate everything you do for us.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Well, that's John Feldt from Blue Water Outlook. We'll have the links that you can go ahead and sign up for his service. It is free and sponsored by Mershman Seeds. And John, we'll have you back again as we get into summer.
Sounds good.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And I'd like to close with just a little bit of a commentary. First of all, if you see a little bit of a mark on my head, I did not get into a fight with the competitors. I had my annual.
Anyway, right?
No, sometimes you wonder, but I went ahead and went to my skin doctor, and I had a little spot up there, and he didn't like it. She didn't like it, so she. That's what happens when they spray liquid nitrogen on your skin. But it does take care of some bad things. So everything looks okay, but so don't get too excited. My commentary is about all of the stuff that's going on right now and things like this, and how companies are pitting themselves against each other and you know, trying to push down the other one or lift up the other one. You know, I've always said that the values and morals of our country start in Washington, D.C. If you see our senators and our representatives and our president always fighting and always arguing, and that's the norm, and of course we have media that blows this all up and puts it in our face every day, then it boils down into business, and then when it goes into business, then it boils down into your families. And some of the things that we're talking about today, they would never have been brought up had you know, because we know what the label says and what it means. However, technically, it's slightly different. So if we don't have competition in the marketplace, you can expect that farmers would pay $100 for their soybeans. And I don't think that's beneficial to anybody, especially the farmer who we work for every day and try to help. So this competition in the marketplace is probably not viewed as a positive thing for some companies. They don't like it. They want to push back against it. And all we're saying is, hey, we're the new kid on the block. We're bringing a great product. We're bringing two great products to market, LibertyLink GT27 and Enlist E3 through MS Technologies and our partners. And we're going to have some problems and we're going to see some differences, but at the end of the day, we're going to give you choice, and we're going to keep the cost down of these traits so that we don't have $99 traits. That's my opinion, and some of you may disagree with it, and I respectfully understand that. But thanks for listening today, and we certainly appreciate your business, and we'll keep you informed. And please let other folks know about Cup of Joe. I think we're trying to be as timely as possible and try to give as much information as we possibly can to our customers to make good decisions. Have a good week and take care.